Hi, my name is Mark Poirier. I'm the founder of Emboldia. And just real quick, and a couple people have heard this already, but Emboldia is actually the result of a failed project. And I failed miserably and made a lot of mistakes. People such as Dimitri and some other folks were trying to tell me how to make the project I was working on work, and because of my saying that I knew everything, I didn't take any of their advice, and it didn't work out. But I came up with this name called Emboldia, and during that whole due diligence period, I was able to connect with a lot of entrepreneurs and investors from around the country, and there was a lot of interest in Vermont. So I said to myself last fall, I said, you know what, maybe I can start some sort of networking series, a networking speaker series that could expose out-of-state entrepreneurs and investors to Vermont. And we had the first event was during our Innovation Week, which is up in Burlington, which is promoted by BTV Ignite. We had an out-of-state investor from New York who came up to speak. Karn Cross from Fresh Tracks Capital was the moderator, and the guy was blown away. The only thing he knows about Vermont is Stowe and Stratton, and that's it. He didn't know that there's a lot of innovation and forward thinking here. And I felt that was a success. We had a second event last May. We brought a person that lives in Dorset who's a tech entrepreneur by the name of Joe McVicker. I'm sure some of you folks might know him. He's a very successful tech entrepreneur. That went very well, and he actually ended up getting some collaborators for his project. So anyways, the whole objective of this is for people to meet new people, collaborators, investors, anyone that's looking for a consultant that needs help. Hopefully it'll happen here. And I'm still trying to figure this Emboldia thing out, so it's a work in progress. Joy,
yeah. This
is your show now, and I want you to bring this to a whole nother level. So let's see what you got.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Emboldia. Our topic and theme tonight is the power of entrepreneurial communities and engaging with Generation Y and Millennials. My name is Joy Proft. I am the CEO of Joy All Things Under Things. I'm going to explain the flow of the evening. We've gotten off to a little bit of a late start, but that's okay because I think the networking before this was phenomenal. There are some people in the room that I know. There are people in the room that I met for the first time, knew nothing about when I got here tonight. Ginny, I didn't know before. It's nice to get to talk to you. These gentlemen from Bennington, I believe it's Ken, right? And when I said, hi, my name is Joy, he said, hi, I'm Sadness. So I will forever remember that. In 50 years, no one has ever come back with that. So I will remember that. And there's people in the room I'd really like to get to know. So as part of the flow of the evening, when everything's all finished, there will be a few more minutes of networking. And I'm looking forward to that as well. It's such an important part of evenings like this. So very valuable time that we've spent tonight. We are going to begin very soon with our panel with Isa and Michael. This will take us to about 7 o'clock, so we have a half an hour of discussion here with the panel. And then we'll have some opportunity for question and answers from the audience. So as we're up here, and if you think of questions, you need a pen or something, want to jot something down, 15, 20 minutes, ask your questions, perhaps something we talked about tonight relating to the theme of our topic. That would be great. When that's over, more shameless plugs. I thought this was fantastic. At first I was like, oh my God, all these people are going to speak. But then I'm like, wow, this is interesting. This is great. I already know one shameless plug I definitely want the group to hear. Steve, I want you to talk about your plan. I love it. I love it. So after that, we'll have more networking as I mentioned. With that, let me introduce the panel here. Michael Jagger, as in Mick Jagger. He's the founder and chief officer of Solidarity of Unbridled Labor. At some point tonight, I hope that you can explain the name of your company, because I think it's fascinating. The Solidarity of Unbridled Labor is a graphic design and brand studio based in Burlington, Vermont. His company is part of a creative community, or located in this creative community called the Karma Birdhouse. So I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit about that tonight. Michael believes that brands are living things. He believes that your brand identity is a square and anything can go on in that square. And companies and clients that Michael's company works with are the likes of Virgin Mobile, Virgin Hotels, the Vermont Symphony Orchestra, Microsoft, Xbox, the Fletcher Free Library. So a diverse group, and that's not the whole list. Those are just some that I thought were interesting and very diverse. So Michael, we're looking forward to hearing from you today. And to my right is Issa Sawabini.
Got it.
He's the founder and CEO of Fuse, which is also located in Burlington, Vermont. Fuse is a youth culture marketing agency, specializes in marketing to teens and millennials. His clients include Mountain Dew, Harley Davidson, Gatorade, Wendy's, Frito-Lay. And again, that's just a very short part of the master list that Fuse works with up in Burlington. Fuse has been named one of Vermont's best places to work for 6 consecutive years. So I think to Mr. Jaffe's point about, attracting and retaining talent, that can be part of our discussion tonight too. But very interesting, and one of those years, it was number 1.
Number 1. Gotta get back on top though, we're like number 3
Best
right
place
now.
to work for Vermont, so congratulations on that. So now we will begin. The power of entrepreneurial communities and engaging with Generation Y and Millennials. In one of our preliminary calls, our only preliminary call, we got to know each other and talk about some of the topics tonight. And something that Michael brought up I've not been able to leave my mind, and that is your kind of research of the actual word entrepreneur and what that word means.
Yeah, and how relevant it is to Vermont. Thank you for the intro. It's great to be here. Mark, you were way too humble when you did your intro. This is a powerful thing and is exactly what we need to be doing. So Emboldia is a really beautiful thing. I'm happy to be here. I'm actually super thankful. I got a few minutes to hang out with Albert. As soon as I got down here a little early, and I got to walk through the house with Albert, so it was worth the trip right there. And then Melissa's glasses also. It's like huge design inspiration, and met a whole bunch of cool people. So anyway, thank you for everybody coming together. On the point that Joy brought up about the entrepreneurial side of things, if you look at the history of it, and I'm always intrigued by etymology and how does everything kind of unfold. And it was interesting to look at the roots of where entrepreneur came from. In the 1300s in France, it was initially the idea of a verb, and it meant to undertake. And then in the 1600s, it moved toward a noun and became, in a business context, it was to undertake a business venture. And then there was an economist shortly after that, Jean-Baptiste Serre, who came up with the idea that entrepreneur is really an adventurer, and entrepreneur equaled adventurer as an idea. And I found that really compelling when you think about the sort of path that entrepreneurs take and the destiny that they're trying to find, the risk and reward that is part of going down a path no one has ever taken before. It really is appropriate that an entrepreneur is an adventurer. And when you think about Vermont and you think about adventure, there couldn't be a more aligned sort of metaphor as to what entrepreneurialism is about. And if you also just think about the roots of Vermont, from Ethan Allen, I always find it very interesting. He was a punk. Like Ethan Allen was a troublemaker. And you can see that going forward, whether it's Hinda Miller with Jagger in the future, or Ben and Jerry, or Alan Newman. I mean, there's a lot of very rebellious adventurers that have created iconic opportunities because of the freedom of thought that Vermont represents. So I think an adventurer context is an appropriate discussion for tonight, and is very unique to Vermont.
I love that. We all know we're entrepreneurs, but thinking of ourselves as adventurers kind of elevates the conversation in my book. So if we start there, here we are as adventurers. So in that regard, it's right here in our topic tonight is an entrepreneurial community. I mean, what is this? I must admit that when Mark first invited me, thank you by the way, to be the moderator, I thought it was just a tech thing, I wasn't quite sure what entrepreneurial community meant. So maybe, either one of you could kind of, what does this mean, this this bigger adventure entrepreneurial community.
Yeah, it's an excuse for us to all hang out in coffee shops and drink lattes, right?
Perfect.
No. And by the way, thank you, Mark, for having me. And I'm excited to see Jetson here. We have about 25 dogs in my office, so I feel very comfortable with dogs around. I think adventure is a great mentality, and I'm often talking to young people, and I think it's exciting because when I speak at colleges and I ask people, do you want to have a career at a company or do you want to own your own business? 90% of the kids raise their hand and want to have their own business. The concept of starting something and doing it together, and when I think about entrepreneurial community, I think about the people who start and run businesses that work together and think about the concept of all ships rise. And so I have a fun little story. For a long time, the folks at Dealer.com were in the smaller office in the building that I was in Pine Street, and they got a lot bigger. And as together we kind of rose, I was excited to see them. And so it's not thinking about, we don't do the same thing, but it's not thinking about people as competitors. Michael and I both offer a design service, but I would much rather high-five him with success and win together. And the concept that all ships rise with the tides is important, but also to support each other, even if it's your competitor. If you're a retailer, you want lots of traffic in town, and if somebody else has something awesome, great, it brings everybody together. So I think it's a shared mentality that not every business necessarily thinks about. I have a lot of Fortune 500 clients, and we spend a lot of time thinking about how do we get market share and how do we take more away from the other guy. We have an opportunity as entrepreneurials to win together and to support each other, and not always think about the bottom line every day, but think about the broader community. And Vermont's a community-driven place, so I think we have an inherent opportunity to work as a community together, but also to share what we know and support each other, and some high fives along the way are really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
Right on. Relevant to our community, I think, all ships rise, and the ideas of destinations that exist in our community here in Manchester. With the bookstore, Issa was like, oh yeah, that bookstore, I love that bookstore, and thank goodness I own a company right down the street from that bookstore. I'm so, every success they have, I am completely rooting for them all along the way. You are actually part of kind of a physical entrepreneurial community up in Burlington. Why don't you tell us about the Karma Birdhouse?
Yeah. Well, Karma Birdhouse is it's a 45,000 square foot old beautiful warehouse, a food distribution building that's right on the waterfront. We've been there about 25 years, and when we were fortunate enough to acquire it, it was pigeons flying. There was no roof, and just incrementally built it over many years, and managed to save a building. But it's really the home now of a very entrepreneurially spirited culture that is a combination of things. And actually, I'd like to speak to the entrepreneurial community side of what we were discussing before in that context, because that's what the Karma Birdhouse was born of. It's not a co-working space in the traditional sense. It's kind of a hybrid in how it works. But there's a lot of interesting conversation that goes on in Vermont in particular about, and it's kind of grown out to many other cities aspiring to some of the same entrepreneurialism. But with Vermont in particular, there's the heritage of the bucolic Vermont and the tourism side of it, which is a really beautiful thing, and many people are protective and really trying to advance that thinking. And then there's also the technological side of what's emerging with people like Dealer and many others doing brilliant work in technology. And many people talk about the future is about technology. It's all about that. It's all about the digital future. And there's great truth in that as well. But when you think about Vermont and you think about an entrepreneurial community, it's really the super colliding capability of all of it. And Vermont, I mentioned earlier about the adventurer side of it. Vermont is about, the brand of Vermont is freedom of thought. And whether it comes in the form of technology or hospitality or food or art or design or the creative economy, it's the ability to beautifully collide those things together. It's those intersections that is what we need to stand for. And that is at the heart of an entrepreneurial community. As Issa said, it's like helping each other along, and to think that there's this sort of binary division between technology and agriculture, it isn't at all. It's a fabric that is happening, and the earlier that's embraced and celebrated, the more powerful the experience will be here. But it's very interesting to see how many people are sort of defending bucolic Vermont, and it's all a beautiful fabric if we do this well. So I'm very intrigued by that as far as the community, and Karma Birdhouse was designed to perpetuate that kind of thinking.
So it's an actual physical space where where there are various companies and you all kind of, I mean, the coffee shop, you all go there.
There's
Is there
about
a-
60 companies.
60 companies in
From
one
single individual entrepreneurs to up to, I think the largest company has 15. And they adapt and scale and shift and move, but it's designed to be a culture that is engaging and intersecting constantly because of the gallery. We have a gallery, a cafe, we have a silkscreen studio where people make art and learn to make art together. But it's a dynamic and unique culture. But it's designed to collide, creatively collide.
Well, since we're talking about, since you brought up kind of, a place to work and the culture, maybe it's a good time to talk about working here in Vermont. I mean, I opened my business, I worked in the music industry for 15 years, but I wanted to live in Vermont, and circumstances got me back here, and I looked for opportunity. I didn't grow up thinking I'd open a lingerie store, but I saw opportunity for this type of retail store in this type of town, Manchester, Vermont, and that's the opportunity I saw. I'm grateful now to have 5 employees and good jobs and, all that. But this, working in Vermont and creating a culture, we have such a recreational pull for people to enjoy. We have a quality of life, obviously. But is that enough? And what kind of things do you see that are opportunities to help us attract and retain people here to work in these companies in Vermont?
I mean, I think we have the flexibility to put people before profit if you so chose, and we've done that for 21 years at Fuse. So, we're proud of the best places thing. We've also been named one of the top 50 places to work in the country by Outside Magazine. And if you work at Fuse, the benefits that I'll tell you about, you hear about in Silicon Valley, but we were doing this 20 years ago. So everyone gets a season pass. Everyone's healthcare is fully paid for. Everyone's getting a gym membership. Dogs are in the office. And every year we're coming up with new things. So, the keg of cold brew is now the thing that everybody has to have at their office, but we just bought a Volkswagen camper van that staff can take out on the weekends just for fun. We have, next Friday is Lobsterfest, and so we have an unlimited all-you-can-eat lobster buffet. And so, these are fun things. We have the best indoor skate ramp in Vermont in our warehouse. We have paddle boards that you can take out. If you stay for 5 years at Fuse, you get a special gift, and this was inspired by our work with Gillette, where a guy that worked there for 15 years got a blender, like literally got the blender. So at 5 years at Fuse, we know our staff really well, we know their families, so you get a special trip, and that could be a skateboard trip to Barcelona. We just sent somebody to the French Open. It's a trip that has a significant value, and I can tell you that nobody quits at 4.5 years. And so for us, we know that keeping people is really important. And I think people ask me, how do you do business in Vermont? And I say, how would I do business someplace else? We're not on Madison Avenue. I am selling the Vermont experience to candidates who come from all around the country. So we have 2 ways that we bring people in. One is to keep all the young people. I can't keep them all, but we have about 60 folks at Fuse. And for every entry-level application, I think I get about 400 Vermonters who apply. So there's a desire to stay. There's just I don't have 400 jobs. So we try to bring in folks and train them. But I'm selling the Vermont experience, and for most folks, they've had a Vermont experience. So all the work that we do to bring people here from a tourism recreation experience is the first step in getting them to move here and work here. And, my philosophy has always been, you're going to come back to Vermont to work. Young people, you're going to want to go try something else. If you grew up here, you're going to go live in a city, you're going to do something. That's okay. We got to get to the mindset that you'll be able to swing back the boomerang effect. So we do these benefits not because it's fun to talk about on panels and write about in magazines, because it actually keeps our people. So in the agency world, our retention is about 5 times higher than the average agency. My senior people have all been with me for 15 years, and they're family. So we build this family by making sure we treat our people like family, and that's kind of the key to how we operate. And it feels right here. And it's funny because when I see Google has gummy bears in their kitchen, it's like, we got gummy bears. I got those guys covered. So we got to keep coming up. We got to push. So the van life is hot right now. If you guys are, if you have van life.
We need CBD gummy bears.
At some point, those will probably be available. But we work really hard to keep pushing the boundaries. And I'll tell you that it creates an interesting thing because our young staff don't know anything else. So what I hear every time somebody does leave, and they leave occasionally, is they come back and they tell me every single time that's the best place I've ever worked, and I'll hear that for the next 10 or 15 years.
Totally.
And that's something that means a lot to us, and that helps build our reputation and gets us more applicants. So create the great workplace, treat your people right, and they're going to stay with you, and then they're going to spread the good word even when they leave.
Love it.
So.
Right on.
Right on.
Jobs are on our website. I saw a lot of people that I always get that I work there. That's pretty common. So
Yes. Well, it sounds like a great place to work, so congratulations, obviously. CBD, that joke went over my head, but I think it's in Colorado.
Cannabis.
Okay. Okay. Did it go over anybody else's head? No? Oh, no? Oh, yes.
No, big
Okay.
Big business.
Big business, opportunity, right. So, Michael, you have some experience in this region. I mean, these guys are from Burlington, but Michael, I know you've done some work, I know, with Stratton, and their celebrating 50 years of Stratton. Michael, you did help with some design work and some promotional and marketing efforts with that. So you're pretty familiar with this region down here. There are a lot of opportunities. Could you just sum it up for us and how we can just continue to kill it here in Manchester?
No problem.
I
have a sketch for you. I have spent a fair amount of time here working with Sky, and I'm sure many of you know or remember Michael Cobb, who was the marketing director and was a dear friend of mine. We worked together for about 20 years. And we did the Stratton identity. We helped on countless U.S. Opens when the U.S. Open was here. We worked with Jake and Donna at Burton when they were up the road, when we first started designing Burton boards for them and doing all the board graphics, and then went on to do many other things. And we're very fortunate when they moved to Burlington. It was something that was pivotal to Vermont, but also helped create a lot of jobs. So I have spent a lot of time here, and it's a beautiful experience and a beautiful place. And I think one of the things that I think you need to think about, whether it's the retaining of talent, the attraction of talent, the business growth opportunity, entrepreneurial and otherwise, the ability to brand place is the pivot point. It really is at the heart of everything, and we assumed that we would look at some of this topic. I mean, certainly we were given all of the economic development reports and things. So thank you for sharing the content and the history. The analysis and study has been very deep, but the ability to create place and meaningful, relevant, aspirational place is really at the heart of it, and there's an opportunity to create, if you can synchronize to amplify what it is you're doing and get more people working together around a more unified idea of what it is to exist in this region and what makes it different and unique, what differentiates it on every level, and then capture that and express it through design and communication and tone. Places like Austin happen because of a synchronization of purpose and identity and image that everyone gets and aligns on. Many cities have Austin envy because of South by Southwest. I can't even count how many people are like, Vermont needs a South by Southwest or Burlington. And they're not the only city that has done a brilliant job of really refining their brand. But that is really the opportunity here, is to think about what is the Southern Vermont region idea. If you look at what's going on in the Northwest, what Portland and Seattle, there's a Northwestern ideal, an ideology that people get, and it's a magnet. So that's something to really be working on, but it will only be as effective as all of you are in synchronizing your energy around embodying that idea. Like you have to be able to amplify the meaning of it and the experience of it. Because a brand is nothing more than it's a set of experiences that deliver on a promise. That's all it is. So what is that promise that you're going to deliver? Is it radical free thinking and the celebration of the men and women that actually take the adventure and do it? And it's the imaging of that, I think, is really, really important. One of the traps that I think we need to watch out for, and a region like this needs to watch out for, is the recreational side and so on. If you look at the outdoor industry right now, which we do a lot of work in between Patagonia and Black Diamond and Issa, I know you're in this space too, it's commodified. It all looks the same. Everybody's photography looks the same. Everybody's got cool video. And if there isn't differentiation, you got nothing. You have nothing. It all looks the same, and it all squirts into our pockets 24 hours a day. So it's the ability to understand, like, what is your difference? What does it look like, smell like, feel like, act like, and sync up on that. That's at the heart of placemaking.
And I'll just build on that. Once you've synced on it, you've got to communicate it and know who you're talking to. And so a lot of effort in Vermont, and I'm sure down here, goes into talking to visitors. And how much money is, and beautiful videos and other things are created, but how much is spent on talking about living and working here and marketing that type of thing. And many great and beautiful places forget that we all live everybody else's vacation, and we spend all day long getting people to come here for vacation, when we sometimes forget that we need to communicate both to those who would stay here and those who might consider living here that's an opportunity. And so, we often think about B2B marketing and economic development about trying to hook that new Amazon HQ2, but realistically, we're not getting Amazon HQ2. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, read the New York Times. But everybody wants the big fish. Realistically, there's a much better chance to bring lots of entrepreneurial folks, small businesses, and other things to a great place.
Help grow.
The recreation assets. I take candidates mountain biking and show them the insane mountain biking that you can ride to from my office, because I know that's better than what they're going to get if they work in New York City. If they like mountain biking, if they prefer drinking at Brooklyn bars and going bowling at 4 a.m., like, that's cool. They're going to go to Brooklyn, but I got what I have here, and I play that card really hard. So,
but also it's the connection of things like this. I mean, you can go out and mountain bike and light people up around things like that, which are great. But they're also, when you're looking to make a choice between an Austin or Brooklyn or something like that, people need to know there's freaking smart, cool people doing amazing stuff here. And that's one of the biggest blind spots we have, is people get here and they're like, what's going on? It's like, oh yeah, J.J. Abrams hangs out here and does film. There's indie film stuff going on. Like, people don't know, and unless you really work hard at it, they don't know.
Well, I kind of see, I have friends, social media has done a lot, I think, but we could do more. I think this is a really valid point. Those of us who live and work here and enjoy this life, I just post pictures of my backyard, and my friends that I used to work with in Los Angeles or New York, they're like, wait a minute, you own a business, this is your backyard. And I said, yeah, and you should see my commute. I live in Paulet, which is one of the most beautiful valleys you've ever seen, right? So
And I don't sit in traffic.
I don't sit in traffic, no red lights. So I think that is something that we could all, rebranding and all these big ideas of branding our place. It's something we can all just start with ourselves, in our life. We are really, really living the dream, those of us who are here. I think we are being in the dream. So
There's
I love that point.
With younger folks looking for jobs too, they want to know where else they'll work, because they'll assume they're not going to be there that long. And so if you move here, you need to know what your next 2 jobs are. Mm-hmm. And that means just understanding what else is happening in town, because people don't assume that they're going to stay at the same job for 10 years. And so if you're looking for employees, they want to know the rest of the scene, what else is going on. It's pretty funny, but when I'm trying to interview folks, I'll give them a list of 10 or 15 other marketing agencies in Vermont, because they don't know they exist. So I talk about Michael's company, because hey, if it doesn't work out here, you just moved your family to Vermont. Like, you want to know that you don't have to move back out somewhere else. So a little bit of that, just market the whole region, not just your own specific business.
Right on. Well, Issa, I definitely want to talk about the millennials and all these generations, Generation X, Y, Z. Can you just break it down for us, kind of year by year? I know it's something that I should probably have a better grip on, but when people say, what are you doing to engage the millennials? I'm not...
Gummy bears.
What? Gummy bears?
CBD gummy bears.
Okay.
So, yes, I can break it down, and then you all have to promise me that you will recognize that nobody actually talks about themselves as a member of a generation. So we can talk all day about this, but there's no kid out there that says, I'm Gen Z. That's what I do all day.
So it's really just a marketing...
This is all marketing talk, although that you can basically, we decided to slap labels on groups of people and decide that they act the same way because of their age, which is a little bit ridiculous. So we tend to think about mindset, and we tend to think about life stage more than that, but I'll give you that and then I'll tell you why you should forget it all.
Okay, well, thank you.
All right, so the most common thing that we get is someone will call me, I need to reach millennials. So our target audience is teenagers, and then I tell them that the oldest millennials are 40. So Nielsen starts millennials in 77. So every millennial has graduated college, and millennials are young adults right now. So for a long time, everyone's like, oh, millennials are young people. Millennial equals Gen Z. It's basically from college to 40. So you have two halves. You have older millennials, and you have younger millennials. Younger millennials have not lived without the internet. Older millennials grew up, and the internet kind of came to life when they were in high school or college. Older millennials have moved into a life with kids. Younger millennials are in their first job. So millennials is good, but really there's two halves. There's a big difference between if you have kids or if you have your first job.
All right, so millennials are not teenagers.
Millennials are not teenagers.
They're 25 to 40 years old.
So Gen Y and millennial are the same thing. Gen Z is where almost all businesses who are targeting teenagers are, and so those are kids up to college right now. So Gen Z, just think about that from like grade school to college, and guess what? Third grade's a lot different than college, so again, life stage is way more important. So nobody should target an entire generation for anything that they do unless they sell toilet paper. So, or solar, right? Or solar. But so you got to, it's more important to think about life stage. Age is even, I know a lot of 45-year-olds who act like they're 19-year-olds, and I can talk to them in a 19-year-old way. So understanding your voice, your target audience, and who that is it's just not as simple as millennials. If you have something that's about young people, think about young people. And when we build strategies, we base them on values, and then we apply tactics. So every generation in history, every young person has balanced, how do I stand out from the crowd and how do I fit in? Is this inherent tension that exists in being a young person. You want to have your own identity, but you don't want to be left out of the crowd. And so there's all these different things. Money, family, there's values that are important to every young person, and if you look at the foundational values of these, every generation you'll see the same themes. How they bring them to life, how they act, what they behave, what they consume is different. So those are tactics. So big picture, think about life stage, not generation. If you don't know what the generation is, don't worry about it. But understand the age and kind of life stage, and then apply your brand to the right tactic. So somebody said post to Facebook, awesome, but if you're talking to Gen Z, use Snapchat, right? So at the beginning, and people say that, right? So when knowing which and where to deliver is really important. But you don't have to be everything for all people, and most brands and businesses should not try to do that unless you're toilet paper. So, so yeah, if you guys want to sort through that, I talk about this all the time. And CMOs of major Fortune 500 companies use the wrong terminology all the time. So it's more just using the wrong word than it is thinking about brand the right way.
So this, the millennials, which my first job out of college, I sold radio advertising time. And it was, Joy, go out and sell. We want that 25, this radio station gets the 25 to 54 demo, and you want the women because they're the ones who are making the household decisions and stuff. So I'm realizing the more I, have gotten to know Isa, that this millennial term is really that, maybe a little bit younger than 54, but that 25 plus demographic are the ones who are buying houses and having babies and making moving decisions and vacation decisions. I mean, this is an important demo. I don't see it so much in my company, but that's just my company. So I appreciate you saying that maybe it's not the end all be all. This group, this 25 to 40-year-old group, what do they value when you think about marketing to them? What speaks to them?
Experiences. And you guys have so many experiences around here. How many people do you see on Main Street taking pictures of themselves all day long? 10 years ago, you didn't see that, right? And so it not only the experience, but because experiences have become social currency. So it's much more important for many folks to do things than to have things. It's not just about showing the thing that you bought, it's about sharing the thing that you did. And you do it because you're proud of it. Some people do it because they like to show off, but experiences are important, and experiences evolve through life stage. So from young adulthood into parenthood, you have different types of experiences, all of which are very shareable. So lots of experiences, and you can create experiences in your own retail store, you can create experiences at your hotel, you can create experiences that stand out and are different and don't feel and look like everything else. And those are experiences that are, you're sharing pictures of your backyard because there's something about that experience that's good. So it's not just for the visitors, this isn't just about the tourists, this is about sharing experiences and creating experiences that matter. So that's the number one thing, is a brand experience, and letting them interpret what that can mean and not necessarily just force feeding them what you think it should mean. So that I can talk for 4 hours about what they want, but that would be, if you take away one thing, young people value experiences over things, and everyone here can create an experience in whatever business that you have or are starting.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Michael and Isa. I think we've had a very lively discussion here. I'd like to open it up to the audience now and see if there's any questions about something we talked about or didn't talk about, or something you want to know more about. Anyone out there? Oh, Jeremiah.
Isa, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but
Fuse alumni right there.
Excuse me?
I think this past year you guys put out a white paper that underlined the importance of cause marketing for youth, millennials.
Yeah.
And how do you see that as like scalable to smaller entrepreneurial ventures?
Yeah.
Whereas a Fortune 500 company can be like, we underwrite Nature Conservancy, whereas a one-person business in this area might say, I volunteer for Nature Conservancy.
I didn't hear what kind of
Cause marketing. So
cause marketing.
thoughts on cause marketing, supporting causes, and talking about it. So I think we've gone through several phases in this world where cause marketing was one of the things you did as a marketing tactic, to we're actually now in a world where most consumers expect you to support and do good, and they expect companies to do good. So to answer that, how can a small business, the expectation is you should do something good for whatever you choose, the environment, the world, your neighbor. You should probably mention it, but in most cases we're recommending against trying to make that front and center, because cause marketing doesn't differentiate you. It's kind of the thing you should do, and if you're not, you're going to get called out for not doing it, as opposed to doing it as a means to talk about yourself. So do good, don't brag about it, save the world, but be humble about it. It's kind of the approach.
And make sure it's authentic to who you are,
Yep.
what you're doing.
Yeah, and make sure that it's real. So if I'll pick on one of if you're an oil company, 1% for the planet, maybe not your top choice. Unless you've got a really cool, unless you say, you know what, that's unexpected, let's see what we're gonna do, and here's what we're actually doing to make that happen, as opposed to just sending some cash, right? So make it authentic. But every small business, every entrepreneur should find something, I believe, to do that's good, and you don't have to make it front of your website.
Can you spin that, the 1%?
That's just somebody they work with who's an
Yeah, it's
Okay.
and they help to actually facilitate getting funds from many companies to nonprofits.
So you sign up to, is it 1% of sales or profit, I think
1% of
goes.
sales, and now you can do it as an individual and not just a company. But it was born from Patagonia, the brand Patagonia. Yvonne started the idea 15 years ago.
There's certainly a lot of causes.
Yes, there are. But I think Michael said, picking something that
That's authentic.
is meaningful either to your employees, and we do our cause-based marketing. We have a community committee, so all of our giving is selected by our staff. So anyone can bring in and kind of put up for a vote, and then the panel will vote, and then we do a donation, and we match 100% of all of our staff's donations as well, and that supports what they're into. And I don't judge; they can choose whatever they like.
Yeah. And choice, actually, that's a big part of it. I think having that choice is really essential, not only for the internal group, but when people engage with 1%, they can choose where their funds go, and that's really important, because it's got to be local, it's got to be personal, or it doesn't mean anything, or enough.
I love that. I love that, really, having your staff be involved with the causes to support. Love that.
But I think, Jeremiah, that we've kind of moved from the world where that's the thing you lead as your marketing, because it just, everyone is doing those things. So.
Okay. Another question. Hello.
It's related to his question. How is purpose different than cause, and how can that help erode these sort of silo approaches to different life stages or generations? How do you see that? How do you see a company's purpose different than its cause, and is that valuable to think about?
if you didn't hear that, it's how is purpose different than cause? Michael?
It's interesting. There's a big debate going on in strategy right now around mission versus purpose. There's a lot of dynamics happening there, and to a degree, it's semantic. I mean, where are you pointed with what intention and why does it matter? I mean, that's at essence what it's about. I mean, for me, the difference between purpose is really about very clear intention of how are you trying to use what you're doing for good, ideally. But what is that purpose and what is its emotional momentum that it's creating? And as far as cause, it seems more like that's something you align with or help to perpetuate, but I don't know, purpose seems more like it's from the heart of whatever entity it is. But it's very, this debate around mission and purpose is pretty hot right now. There's a great book, actually. There's a guy named David Hiwett who created a brand called Howie's in Wales. He also created the Do Lectures, which if you get a chance to look at that, he has a series of books called Do Publishing. There's Do Publishing books, and he wrote a book on purpose. And his whole concept is about purpose-based companies, which is very worth looking at. It's like a little workbook on purpose.
Do as in D-O?
D-O.
D-O. Do. Okay. Leslie?
I'd love to hear the panel's thoughts on economic development marketing compared to marketing for tourism and for employees. I mean, we have a very real issue in Manchester of economic development. We have empty storefronts, and that's what's facing us right now. We have all of this, and we need to find a soul and an identity and how we package that and market it. And right now, we don't have that. And that is a big concern.
Any ideas on economic development for Manchester specifically?
Just your thoughts on how marketing would be.
I mean, I could talk about it. Yeah.
You want to drop in
Sure.
on it?
I mean, I think what you said is one of my big observations, especially in resort communities and places that are in states that are so focused on tourism, is we forget to tell everybody you could work here after you come here for the weekend, right? And that doesn't mean you have to have the means to buy a second home. It means you can actually move here and it'd be awesome. I think sometimes we, in the state, put ourselves in a box and literally try to fill a box. So outdoor manufacturer leaves, we try to fill that facility with a new outdoor manufacturer, right? You have retail space, you try to fill it with new retail space. It is the obvious path, and if you own the property, that's the easy tenant, but it may require a different, more broad approach, especially to bring small businesses, startups, those who want to start a business here, those with flexibility. Convincing a big company to put a retail store here versus an entrepreneur to come here and do something is a very different idea. And so, I would say, it's about showing why you should live here and work here, and that's a different and more personal message to an individual as opposed to tax incentives and other things, which are all fine and good, but that's how Denver's going to get Amazon HQ too. That's probably not how a small town is going to get a big company here. The other piece of the puzzle is I would show how the companies that are here are happy, successful, and are supported, right? So you can sell a dream, but it's a lot easier to show a reality. And so I think it's a combination of touting all the things you could have, but finding relevant experiences and stories of those who have it so that they can connect the dots as to why living here and having your business here is really important. So it's a really different message. I'm all for snowboarding, mountain biking, and cows, but the tourism side of this can be a piece of the puzzle, but is not the lead. That's how I would go about it.
Yes. Oh, okay. I didn't know. Okay.
That's all right if you have
All
another
right.
question.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Hi, Curtis Osler from Vermont Tech. So I'm curious, what kind of employees are you looking for? It sounds like you're talking about young people, predominantly. I don't know if that's exclusively, but Asa, you also mentioned like you have a training program where you can train within a year. Is that correct? Or was that somebody else?
That was
Well, I think that was Mr.
Oh, okay.
Todd,
So
yeah.
what are you folks looking for, and especially from an education level? A few years ago, it was said that the bachelor's degree is the new high school diploma and you need an MBA. move on, whereas now I get the feeling that it's backing off. People are saying, wait a minute, I don't know if education is worth that much money. Are you looking for more education, less experience, more experience, less education?
So I'd say we'd like both, but I have many very successful folks who don't have a college degree, but they got the degree in event marketing because they lived on a music tour for 2 years, or they worked at a resort running events for 5 years. And so there's some specific skills that we need that you can't teach in school. So there are times where, frankly, I don't care what your GPA was or what school you went to. At our more entry-level positions where the reality is like your internship, like I need somebody who's smart, I need somebody who's driven. I'm looking for motivation, and the degree is pretty important. It's pretty rare that we would hire somebody without a bachelor's degree at an entry-level position unless they had some special experience that I didn't know. And that's simply a filter because we have thousands of young people who apply. Age is not a consideration for legal terms because my lawyer's in the room. But young people and entry-level salaries does tend to bring younger folks. But we certainly don't discriminate based on age because that would. No, I know. Just because we're on TV, I need to make sure we're very clear about that. But I would say that it's a combination of things. And when I speak to people at college now, I say an internship is great. It better be an internship that's relevant to what you want to do. Our internship program is awesome, but we actually will only take interns who have already decided they want to be in marketing. Our internship is not for someone who'd like to figure out if they want to be in marketing. You kind of have to have had 2 other internships in marketing to have figured that out, and then you can get ours because our interns generally get great jobs in marketing afterwards. So we're pretty specialized in what we do, but I'd say bachelor's degree most of the time, experience all the time.
Did you have anything you wanted to add? I know I wanted to add a little bit to this one too, as an employer.
Yeah, I think your comments are right on, Issa. I think as far as the economic development side of things, one of the things that's important to remember is that regardless of whether it's B2B or consumer direct or whatever is happening, you need to appeal to people's self-interest. I mean, that is at the heart of it. And it's one of the things that we work on is looking at, and many people will talk about the rational and emotional magnets that pull people to an experience. But one of the things that's often missed is the cultural magnet. So it's really about the rational, emotional, and cultural context, like what is happening in their lives, and it's the ability to manage that ecosystem. And if Manchester and the Southern Vermont region can really tap into those very definitively unique ideas that are the rational, emotional, and cultural magnets for economic development, for creativity, for hospitality, all those dimensions, for talent that would want to be here. And then you're basically using that like a mixing board. But you've got to find those differences, and when you find those differences, then you can understand how to write about them, how to image them, how to put them in video, how to create experiences that embody them. And then everyone involved, once they have clarity around that way of being, every single day, thousands of times a day, are an opportunity to demonstrate it. And then suddenly you have imagery that doesn't feel like anybody else, and it takes on a unique signature. And it isn't about a logo and a cute slogan, and that's like bullshit. Like you can create a piece of art and make something you can imbue meaning into it, but it's about a way of being and the practice of that. But you have to decode the difference, the ecosystem of the difference.
What I see here in Manchester, and it's a way of thinking, here in Manchester being a hospitality town, if you will. There's a lot of retail here, there's a lot of recreation here, there's a lot of hotels, there's a lot of hospitality type jobs. I think that we way undervalue these jobs. I mean, a bartender at the Chanticleer can make or break someone deciding to buy a house here. The concierge at the Equinox, the people that you have working the register and who know the books at the bookstore, the women that work at my shop. I mean, these are making and breaking people's decision whether to come back here, people's decision whether to shop in Manchester, to keep our storefronts, our stores that are still here, vibrant. and worth returning to. So I firmly believe one of our opportunities, and it's not hard, is, these jobs as concierge and bartenders and waitresses and frontline retail workers, these are really important jobs to the success of our town. So, we can have tech companies and all that, and this is great, but these jobs, there's a lot of value here. The competition for labor is intense here. We're competing for the best retail workers. Nobody's paying $10 an hour here for retail clerks. So the scale is a lot higher here, and I think that's a great opportunity here in Manchester for us to kind of get back to your question. Also with the economic development here in Manchester, with my shop, it was like I really just listened to what people complained about that they couldn't get. And that's why I opened a bra shop. I swear to God, as women complained that there was no place to buy a bra. And that's why I opened. And I think there's a lot of opportunity like that. If you just listen and don't get so mired in an idea of, I want to be a marketing executive someday. Well, you know what? Guess what my job is? A marketing executive. I own this store. I'm a marketing executive every day. So
empathy is the energy that drives everything.
Empathy is the energy. I love that too.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
Can I just add on your retail, because you guys have, and I've talked and met so many people who started in hospitality, who started great businesses, like embrace the side hustle that they have and support. So we have 3 people who have other businesses that work at Fuse, and they get paid and they get benefits to work on their other business in my office, and I do it, and I hope they're successful, and 3 of them have gone out and been really amazingly successful. So I know you need them to work their hours, but if you allow them the opportunity to spread their wings, there's somebody who already lives here who's got an opportunity, and if you can support them, they might be bartending right now, but when they're not bartending, they might have some other idea. It's a different concept to support them to do the thing that will eventually make them quit, but if you do that, you'll have potentially, more growth. So it's something we've learned that we needed. Originally we said you can't do that, now we actually fully embrace it.
Actually, Issa, I think you tapped into something that's really important. Probably one of the, when you think about entrepreneurial community, coming back to where we started, adaptability is probably one of the biggest aspects of it. Like just the willingness to not follow the traditional thought of how business is done and how relationships work, like the ability to just shift and adapt and change and just let that happen organically. That's probably one of the most essential things, because you're going to have all these ideas bubble up and fizzle out and reshape, and that's just part of the reality, and you need to love that and support it.
And the region can do that too. It doesn't just have to be your own business, so that's a harder task.
Yeah.
All right, there's one more question up there.
I own a small craft beer shop in the village here. We've been open for about 7 months. And I'd be interested to know your thoughts. I'm pretty torn for my marketing approach. Like, we get approached all the time for print advertising that's very expensive. I run my Instagram account, which is very easy, but what I find is that really reaches people all over the country, many of whom never visit this area. And that, of course, is cheaper. Facebook, I'm pretty ambivalent about just because of how I don't love that platform, but it definitely reaches people. But I feel torn all the time. Should I invest thousands in print media that will reach people that actually live here, or should I be spending a lot of time like sculpting my online marketing? But it's very unclear how much that actually will reach people that will visit the shop, and all of it's time consuming. So.
I would figure out which targets you have and develop marketing strategies for those. So we worked for 20 years with Mountain Dew, and we talked to 17-year-old skateboarders, and we talked to 50-year-old NASCAR fans, and they're not the same. And they don't consume the same media. They don't say, so we have to, same brand personality, delivered by way of the different tactics with the right messaging. So you probably have a different tourist business, right? And they all want Heady Topper or whatever the hot new jam is, right? And they're going to come in, and you have the beer aficionado amongst those. So you have casual, you're going to have core, and then you're going to have your local business. And I couldn't comment without more detail, but I would look at how effectively you're going to reach that specific audience. And then when it comes to social, you should be geo-targeting everything. So your organic content can be national, but all your boosted posts, everything should be geo-fenced. And there's a bunch of new, easy, affordable tools out there. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, basically everything you do in social should be paid. Like, no longer does what you put on social go to everybody. It's a business, and you've got to boost and do these other tools. So you can hit all those people, and you can actually hit people who are just in this town visiting. There's a bunch of geofencing and other things you can get into. So, but don't try to do everything in one. Have 2 different marketing platforms.